Welcome to day number 313 live. We've been here 313 days since the beginning of coronavirus quarantines. And my guest today is the world famous Tom Lynch. Hello, Tom.
Good morning. How you doing? We got 8 inches of snow on the ground here in Chicago, so hopefully you're better off than I am.
Well, we're going to hit 80 degrees today in Austin, Texas, so it would melt your snow.
80 degrees, 8 inches. What a life.
Tom, what are you going to do for us today?
Well, I want to share with you and the audience something that would relate to any medium, any artist working in any medium. And there's a way in which I do a painting when I'm out there plein air that I've actually now brought into the studio prior to doing a studio painting. So I'm not going to tell you any more, but I'm going to show you a lot.
Okay, well, I'm curious about that. Now, let's get right into it. Then I'm going to ask you some questions as we go along because I'm curious about some of the things that you're going to do. Let's go ahead and get that demo started.
Can I show you an example first? Then I'll give you a little preview of sorts.
Absolutely.
So when I'm plein air painting, the mission for me is to try to capture that wonderful compliment. The painting is simply elegant, so it doesn't mean a whole lot of extra brushstrokes. So for me, I've developed, well, I didn't develop, it's been out there a long time, go direct to painting a small little quick study color sketch that doesn't have, in my case, because I'm watercolor, we generally draw with a pencil first. So I have found, boy, that little gem that I created, plein air, just looks so clean, so fresh, without the structure that a pencil line might take and build to tightness of a painting. So I'll share with you a couple of examples. And now I'm doing that prior to doing a studio painting to have it as a guide instead of the photo reference. So let me just give you a little quick preview.
Don't do plein air painting. So can you talk a little bit about the benefits of getting outdoors and doing plein air?
Oh, I'd love to. That, you know, both as a teacher and personally as a painter, there's certain things I can't teach to a student. They've got to sit in front of that scene, you know, and capture the essence of it. And then personally, my growth now, even though I'm still looking at books and looking at other artwork, my growth now as an artist is directly related to, I've spent some extra time plein air painting. Just seeing it, capture a quick little gesture. Watercolor is a pretty good medium, you know, for that, where you can just get the essence and then get out of the way and let the simplicity, you know, radiate. So, but plein air painting, without a question, you're not a complete artist unless you spend some time doing, I feel, plein air painting. And for the student, they need to go there as well.
All right. Well, I'm all for it. I am excited about watercolor. As you know, we just came off of Watercolor Live.
Yes.
We ended on Saturday night late after 4 solid days. I was a little exhausted yesterday, but we had close to a couple thousand people on. We had 40 countries watching, and I got so excited about watercolor. I've been playing with it. I didn't do anything very good yet, but I'm trying to learn watercolor. I do oil, and so, but I can't travel with my oil all the time, so I want to be able to travel with watercolor.
Not as easy for travel as well, but great little subject, great little way in which to kind of capture the essence. Let me share with you, if I can, just an example or two, because, you know, normally my work is a lot more or a little more, you know, complex, you know, images that you've, might see like that, but they don't happen that way automatically. So here's a scene. This was in Richmond, Virginia, that I created, just directly going to capture that window, then the wall. So I start in a small area, and I'm going to demonstrate that again for you, and then just build a painting with the simple elegance that you can find. And then later on, you know, I kind of give the painter a reward for looking in closer. Can you find the guy that's cutting the grass?
Oh, yeah.
Over in there. So I kind of like sometimes have a little surprise for coming to the painting, come in closer, and I'll give you a bonus. But these paintings were created without doing any pencil sketching. So there's Positano, Italy, and just capture the patterns of the boats, the simple shapes of the buildings in the background, the essence of the light post, and so forth. So that's where I think I have grown as an artist is to paint these little gems, and there's no pencil sketching to begin with. The architecture might be off a little bit, the proportions might be, slightly off, but I'm just capturing that simple beauty, and I'd love to demonstrate for you how
Let's
that
do it.
takes place.
Let's do it.
So I've got a scene here, and I can see a little bit. So I have somewhat of a reference. I've actually got two photographs actually taped together. And I want to share with you that taking this idea, whatever medium that you might work in, it would work ideal for this particular process. So I start somewhere in the center of the painting with just the, the color, the suggestion, the essence of the subject. And then I build the painting. So I might just take this little corner of the wall and build that out.
Can you tell us what kind of paper, what kind of brush, what kind of paint?
Good call. Well, this is, the most important tool is going to be your brush. Kolinsky sable is going to be the best kind of hair you can add, to a brush. So I can't say enough about that. I think your second most important tool is going to be paper. I work with the Fabriano Extra White. I like color and contrast, so that extra white makes my colors pop and makes the contrast a little stronger. Then an important little component that's for plein air painting as well, I work with Sennelier paint. They don't have oxgall, so when they dry, you can easily come back and re-wet dry color, and then it gets soft and moist easier. So some brands that will have an oxgall component.
What is oxgall? I don't know what that is.
It's a binder and an extender for watercolor. So it's a way in which it helps the grind of the pigments to expand and float outward.
Oh.
So it's just part of making it. But years ago, watercolor paint, watercolor paintings, weren't always put behind shrink wrap or glazed in a frame, so they had to do something to the materials so that the painting would survive some of the environment. So as you can see, I'm just capturing the essence of the archways. I've got a couple of them, but I'm going to go outward instead of just finishing that particular section of the painting. I'm going to move over, so it isn't. I don't want to overdevelop one spot. So I'll play with this. This wall, capture the essence of it. It's catching a shadow. I try to work quick with these as well, so I don't overdo. And I have a little thing that I say to myself, I'm going to capture the essence of that shadowed wall, and I'm going to come back and refine it later. Well, the secret is, Eric, I won't go back and refine it later, but I just say that to kind of give myself a little ease of which to move elsewhere. So I'll play with this.
Otherwise, you'd probably get too detailed.
I'm sorry, I missed that, Eric.
I said you'd probably get too detailed if you started refining later.
Exactly. So that's where I have to actually fool myself into thinking that I will come back and do more, but I'm really not.
All right.
But I have to almost say to myself that particular phrase. All right, let go, Tom. Just move over here now. And so I start building it. Yes, I'm thinking about the simple big shapes. I'm not worried about the refinement, capturing the essence. I say to myself frequently, does it seem like, not does it look like? And so that's a way in which I allow myself to have it maintain a certain amount of simplicity. So it has a suggestion of the roof, a lot of the little detailed patterns there. So no windows and doors just yet, and probably seldom, if ever. And this then becomes a great way in which I now even photograph differently, having done paintings like this where I haven't started off with a complex drawing. I now look at and see things differently. I see shapes and form versus just seeing items. Okay, we'll just do one or two windows in that sunny area. Can't wait to get down here and get some of the nice strong darks. I'll pop a little extra contrast. I'm not thinking really, Eric, about focal point. I'm not thinking about, color harmony, all those, wonderful structure components for a finished painting. But I do have on my mind, simply elegant, seems like a quick suggestion. So like we've been in, art school and a life drawing class, those 2-minute quick sketches, quick poses, where you would have to do a drawing of it. I went to the American Academy of Art.
Did you?
I wasn't there when Richard Schmidt was there. He just graduated out. So there's been a few great painters come out of that institution.
Let me ask you a question. I notice you never wipe out your brush. You just, it looks like you just put it in water. It looks like you have some sponge there.
That's right. So I do have a sponge. So there's a sequence that really is kind of important for this in my painting overall. Once I'm, making a few brush strokes here, I've got the essence of what I wanted to put down. I do a quick clean out, a quick drying of the brush. And even though that's the color I might want, I'm going to refresh that color, remix a fresh version of it, and then bring it over and apply it wherever I had thought. So
why do you do that? Does that give you more intense color?
So it's fresh every time. So in watercolor, there's a tendency of colors running into each other. You could, muck up a color. Color laying in the palette could have something floating underneath it. You might see this color on top, and that purple, that's over here, that could have been floating underneath. And if I was just to swap it out, I didn't see the purple underneath, and it wouldn't come off as a nice, clean, fresh. So even in that puddle there, I refresh the mixture, of the red that I might have wanted, even though it seemed like that's only the color I want. Why wouldn't you just take it away? So I have kind of built myself a little habit of refreshing the color each time.
That's a great tip.
Then bringing it over, and you'll have that, because watercolor does have, or watercolorists do have that, that concern of getting colors, muddy and dirty. Standing is also an important part of it, because I'm working from the shoulder. I'm having the arm swing versus sitting too comfortable, working from the wrist and so forth. So I'm doing all the tools. There's times as well, I might even block in with a 2-inch brush, on an 11 by 15 inch, painting, so that I'm almost forcing myself to not be able to, get into some of the tight details. So that standing keeps me farther away, make a quick look of what's taking place, capture the essence of it, move on to another part of the painting. Seems like here'd be a perfect example. Instead of painting every one of those, Italian tiles, just a suggestion of them. Let it go, leave it alone. Tell yourself, come back later and finish it up. So you can see the brevity of the brush strokes, a lot of white space. There's even now and then a phrase I tell my students: only paint 80% of that building, only paint 80% of the bridge, and 80% of what's taking place on the sidewalk and so forth, as a way to help have them remember you're only capturing the essence, and then you'll end up with that beautiful plein air, simply elegant visual for the painting.
That's a great tip. I think somebody ought to write that one in the comments, and also about refreshing your color.
You got it. Clean out the brush, dry out the brush, and a larger brush than needed. Don't get the small one in. There's a phrase, can I share with the group? There's a phrase I use. I've written 8 books. I still have 3 in publication. And one of the phrases I've kept in all the 8 books is, nothing great ever happened with a number 4 round. So add that to the list of suggestions along the way. I'm even going to grab
Nothing great ever happened with the number 4 round.
Nothing great ever happened with a number 4 round. All right, so I see big sweeping shapes. So this also part of this lesson, this way of doing the painting, it helps me visualize. So instead of saying to myself, I have a boat here, I'm going to identify it as a large sweeping shape. These were just very vertical, mechanical, rectangle shapes. I didn't say here's a building and there's a roof. So part of the lesson along the way is how I see and how I translate what it is I'm seeing. So I have that lesson in class where I teach my students to have an art word. The article, in fact, that you had written, I forget what the date was when I was featured in the magazine. It was about how I go on location to explore and find art words to make a painting. And that art word idea is to say something besides calling it a bridge, say something besides calling this a boat. And I see this long, sweeping, rich color. And so I've got the essence of it. I'm going to come back later and finish it. Well, now you know that's not going to happen.
Make that look easy.
50 years, it gets easier and easier. And I've also found, I don't know how this came about, but the more I practice, the easier it gets.
Funny how that works.
The point too, I think, is I'm practicing with a purpose. And so sometimes I'll do a practice where I'm focusing on values. Sometimes I'm doing a practice where I'm focusing on big shapes. Here I'm doing a practice where I'm focusing on the simple elegance of the scene, not the refinement, not the exact, not the detail. So I switched actually to a larger brush too, double the size of what I had previously. Looking at it behind a mat frequently, I found as a helpful guide for anyone wanting to try this, because you're going to have a certain amount of distraction around you. And so what I will take and do, to myself and for my students, is to stop, put it behind the mat. So compare the difference of all of this that's going on around it, and then actually a simple little 3-inch mat telling me that, hey, it's coming along. It's not broken. Doesn't have to have, too many fixes along the way. And I've even adjusted. So here's 3 archways, and there's 5, before I got to the center of the bridge. So I'm not caught up in that the Chamber of Commerce is not going to use this as an example for the brochure to come and visit Venice. It's really just a quick sketch, and probably it's more for me than it is for the viewer. By that I mean, what I'm creating is for my experience, my confidence with the brush, my ability to just put it down, leave it alone. And that's going to apply then intuitively when I'm doing, those paintings later on. And so, yes, they look nice. And yes, I have, sold them at the plein air events and won some awards with them. But the idea is really, it's how it improved me, how I feel about the painting, and what changes how I see and think. And then it's great for everyone. You could always start a painting this way, loose and simple, just blocked in, instead of starting with too much detail to begin with. So it has a lot of purpose, as I said, for the start of for paintings to look this way, and a good number of times leave it alone. That's the finish of the painting.
That kind of reminds me of some things that some watercolors I saw from the 1950s. Kind of it's just that beautiful, just the essence, nothing more than just the essence.
You got it. I have said many times, the best compliment is that painting is simply elegant, instead of, wow, that's the corner of State and Madison, or wow, I know that's an old farm building with a tin roof. Identifying items and parts, they're just saying it's just visually stimulating. And so that's what I'm wanting to create with that. And part of that magic is what I'm doing here now. So I don't mean to be doing things without telling you. I'm coming back with a little item I call the secret sauce. And so I'm giving this visual, not the detail of windows and doors, but the little extra punch of an extra contrast. So I might take this building here and add a little, not all, there's that 80% idea that you liked, a little extra darks here, or possibly a touch of extra darks. Now I can get away with that because, again, I'm working with a good quality paper, that Fabriano. The paint hasn't absorbed in just yet. I painted relatively wet. And so this is just giving this visual just that extra pop with having now it could have been done right afterwards, or it could have been done as I'm doing now, coming back and kind of adding a little finishing touch with a few extra of these little, what I call the secret sauce, those extra darks.
Yeah, I like that.
And the darks aren't necessarily items. Here it's an item like a chimney, but moreover, it's a dark in a place, dark in that shadowed section, a dark underneath, a dark to the side, just a dark accent on top. And so by giving it just that little extra life in the scene, not always, but I feel like it today, I'll add a touch of sky, just the white space. I want this white space to pop, so I'll take and add a little tint of color to help this white be the only white. So I'm not thinking as much as, am I putting a cloud in here, as much as I'd like the whites within this section to be the best ones. So you can see the less is more, the simply elegant. Beautiful. I've never admired any of my own paintings or others because of the amount of brush strokes that you could count. And that's why I think this one has the beauty and the charm.
Well, laying in that dark over the bridge really made that bridge pop.
That's what I was all about, making contrast, giving it the pop. Your new phrase that pays, Eric, is the secret sauce.
Yeah.
And again, hopefully everyone seeing this is good for any medium. This isn't just a watercolor trick. Now I'm helping that white space pop, by taking away. It doesn't have to have a great amount of color to it, but not thinking water, I'm thinking patterns. So that's how, again, doing this plein air. It does work somewhat from photographs, and yes, I still do it from photographs. It started with plein air, and then now I brought it as a regular part of my studio work. Because with all the years I've been painting, I could sit there and really get too detailed. And so I've had to find these little techniques that keeps even me from coming back and adding too many details.
Tom, you got people watching from all over the world. I see India. I see Norway. Let's see, what else do I see? I'm looking around through here. I saw somewhere else pretty far away. I want to remind you guys that if you put comments in, tell us where you're from. It helps us. We like to see where you're from. United Kingdom, I see you. And also, we have prizes today. We have a pair of value specs today. So you get those if you leave comments and we pick your name.
That's a great touch. What a great forum. Thanks for doing this. You've really done a lot for the artists, that are like myself, stay at home. And even though now with the weather, I might not be plein air painting, but still need it. And so you've brought some brilliant ideas and helped the world. So
thank you, sir. Okay, we have Hawaii, Italy, Algeria, Vietnam. Wow, never had Vietnam before that I knew of. Terrific, you guys. Thank you so much for telling us.
Well, that's a great thing too. I'm teaching online classes, and so if they ever want to pursue more, they can find me at tomlynch.com. And what I thought was just going to be classes temporarily, I think I will be continuing with some of the online classes. Yes, I want to go back live and travel, but so I do either a series of watercolor technique classes monthly, or I do a Zoom format where I help people with finished paintings.
That's wonderful. I've put your website on the screen. It's tomlynch.com. And yeah, I think, we set up the events like Watercolor Live, Plein Air Live, Realism Live to survive because we couldn't do our live in person. But we've heard yesterday a woman said, she was handicapped and could not possibly ever attend any of our in-person events. And so we're going to keep them going no matter what.
Good idea. Here's one last little trick that I have learned from one of my teachers, Ed Whitney. So I've studied with a lot of painters, each for a different reason. Ed Whitney was primarily for composition, but along the way, he taught me a little something interesting. So I have this pretty much blocked into where I want. I don't want to overwork it at this particular point. But there's a wonderful little trick that he uses. He calls it lace, grill, or trellis. The smallest of line that I'll put in here now can give the painting a look of being more delicate or refined. And so this idea of just tiny little lines, dots and dashes, like my secret sauce was a wonderful finishing touch, and it can be as well. So any painting, no matter how detailed or complex, could still use this particular process of starting out loose. Or the other part too that I want to bring out, and that is, I feel, at least for me, having a photograph nearby when I'm making a painting, I will immediately make it look, too detailed and too tight. So now I don't have to have this particular photograph as a guide. I can have this little gem as a guide in which to make a finished painting from. And that will help that start of that painting have that beautiful little simply elegant look to start with. Now then, along the way, stop frequently and put a mat behind it, and you will see that you'll start stopping sooner. You won't overwork. I put a light mat to help me see the darks, and then I put a dark mat to help me see the lights. I know there's a little glare there if I get that off. So I see the lights in the painting by visually looking at it with a dark mat around it. So do I want to improve the shapes or the pattern in the light areas? I see those light areas quickly by having a visual of a dark around. Or now I can see the dark patterns that I put in. Do they need improvement of value or color or contrast? And I think a little bit of that Ed Whitney trick of the lace, the grill, the trellis, just adds that little delicate impression.
Nice.
Without now changing the whole format to becoming a linear dominant.
Hello, Pakistan. Hello, Bulgaria. Hello, New Zealand. Wow, we're pulling them in today. Must be that snowstorm is probably hitting the rest of the world.
Got it.
Maybe not New Zealand.
You got a minute where we can show a couple of other preliminaries and how it relates to the finished painting?
Yeah.
Okay, because I don't want to overwork or even showcase overworking this anymore. It, to me, has the wonderful look of shapes and patterns and color and contrast. And I'd like to kind of give a little shout out to those, all of us, that need to do a little practice before we do finished paintings. So I do sometimes a little value study, and I'm big on lights and darks. So I do a value study in pencil. Sometimes I just colorize the focal point only, and that has helped me use that as a guide to create a finished painting. So now I'll show you a finished painting that became, this is a place up in Wisconsin, Dillman's Lodge. So having that as a guide instead of the photograph helped me maintain that focus to that focal point area. Nice. Now here's another little preliminary that I've done. So one of the preliminaries, like I just did, do a painting without doing a pencil sketch first. And then now and then what I like to do is to take the exact same scene for the sake of creativity, and what can I do different to that particular scene? No, it wasn't quite that look at that particular moment. I didn't experience that. I've experienced sunrises and sunsets like that. Can I superimpose that look to a finished painting? So I love the creativity of taking the same scene and painting it in different ways. And so here became the final painting. And I had the confidence that this was going to turn out because I had this little color study. So right. I'm trying to showcase for any artist, any medium, take a few extra minutes. We always jump into getting another painting done today. How about taking a minute and practice with a little preliminary? And so now here's a different version, same exact composition. Here I wanted to have it be a cool color dominant, a little different play of the light and the atmosphere. And then here was the finished painting that came about. So if you want to have more confidence in what you're doing, if you're going to make some changes from the way it really is, so that was okay for the first one to be the way it was really. And I also can share with you, this was a no pencil example as well, just like I demonstrated. So I had a nice little loose little gesture simplicity of that particular scene. I had that as a guide in order to do that first painting that I showed you, which is this one here. So coupled with my having a plan for the focal point, coupled with having a little visual as to how I could capture it wonderfully loose, that's the reason for this success. So my point is, if you want more success more frequently, maybe take the time and do a little planning and a little color painting at the same time. And
Tom, I think you've also come up with something else I never really thought about, and that is that we use the term slice every part of the pig. And in other words, when the farmers will take every piece of that pig and they'll make bacon, they'll make ham hocks, they'll sell everything. And what's nice about this is you take your study and then you try to convert it to different colors and different lights and different styles. Now you have one location painting that you can turn into 20 different paintings that you can sell.
Exactly right. Yeah, it's an interesting phrase. I'm going to borrow your phrase as you've borrowed mine about the number 4 round. That's a good point. And that's also the idea behind that is to challenge me. I've got a good composition in my world of art. That's rule number one. Get a good composition. Don't just dive in and brush on and hopefully technique is going to save it. But after a good composition, now how could you do it differently? So I like doing sometimes the same scene with a different view, a different lighting, a different color dominance, a sequence. I love that challenge. But instead of just hoping for the best, instead of just guessing along the way, having that little preliminary is the reason that painting can then go in that particular direction. You'll still have freedom, with some color adjustments, some alterations. And so I didn't plan out putting this red here and felt good about it when I, went ahead with it on that particular scene. So those are, a couple of items. Last little thought I can help everyone with. I'm a big one on doing some black and whites, but for me with watercolor, we do a little bit of pencil drawing to begin with. And I can give you a little secret even on that. When doing that pencil or when just laying out the scene, notice how I have a thick and thin, a light and dark, almost a crosshatch shading. So my sketching prior to doing a painting, the sketch almost looks like it could be just matted and framed. And what this does for me, there's that secret sauce. That's the suggestion to come back later and tag in maybe some of those darks, do a little bit of blocking in versus the detail. So sketching with thick and thin, light and dark, is a way in which I think inspires one to do the painting with that kind of a feel. Or,
great idea.
Or here is another thought, and that is after I've done a sketch, to help me maintain a certain amount of looseness or quality, I've just taken a kneaded eraser and I've erased a third of that sketch to eliminate it. And so that way I don't necessarily see.
Leave that up there for a second because I want to show a painting which I think is the painting you did.
Yes, thank you. There you go. There you go. So even that crosshatch erasing almost left the feel of having, light casting across like you're showing in that particular. So that's Oak Creek Canyon. Thank you. There it is, Sedona, Arizona. Put that on your bucket list, everybody. A great spot to go to. And actually, I'm going to stay with that picture. Can you go back there just a second? I'm going to show you. That's a beautiful lie. So there's two different times of day. Earlier in the day is the side lighting that illuminated the trees. Almost 45 minutes before sunset, there's the last light of the day hitting the top of Cathedral Rock. So I actually put these two ideas together. My feeling a lot of times is to show the viewer the best that a scene can be. So that last light of the day, just the light at the top of the rock, great, looks good. But then again, how about the side lighting? So I actually did a little bit of artistic creativity. I put together two different times of day on the same scene. Just a matter of taking a chance once in a while, which is what we all have to do at the same time.
Very nice.
So thanks for showing that. But that's what I wanted to kind of showcase. And then I also will take and do, some black and white scenes ahead of time. I use a pencil that dissolves. It's called a sketch and wash pencil. So this particular pencil, you can shade with it, and it's a perfect tool to travel with. And so here you can shade with this particular pencil. So it's called a, what is this? Just sketch and wash. Yep, general pencil, made in the States, a sketch and wash pencil. Then I travel with what's called a water brush. And so that's a barrel that holds water. So now I can just squeeze the water out and this quickly dissolves. So for me as a watercolor painter, I'm actually getting the feel of, painting in watercolor, dealing with shading and so forth. I can come back on top of, while it's still wet, add a little extra shading or contrast. So for me, when I travel, yes, I like the simplicity and the beauty that you were saying that watercolor presents, but there's also times in which I'll just do a black and white painting. So this was for a plein air festival in Florida, and I just a little bit of color for the focal point. And here's another one. So what this is doing for me as an artist, it's helping me visualize the scene in terms of tone. So remember I said I had a purpose for the previous one I demonstrated, just capturing the simple elegance. Here I wanted to be in front of the scene, plein air, and just focus on tone, lights, mediums, and darks, and then maybe at the very end, a little splash of color for the focal point.
Yeah, so you're doing the value study. It's fabulous. What a great tool.
It's an art form that is sadly not revered as much, but I've always put in the plein air events that I go to, a black and white scene, because I think they're just pure art, the simple elegance, and that's the reason I want to go and love being an artist, sitting in front of the scene. I've got 2 tools. How simple is that? So I have, or 3. You got your sketchbook, a brush. You don't need a cup of water, a brush that holds water, and that black pencil that dissolves really fast. So I guess it would be called a watercolor pencil that is of a black nature. But having those times plein air is like a training time for me. It's like practice time. I get better because I still practice. I don't get better when I try to, complete another painting. I get better when I do a little bit of either the preliminary sketch or working in the black and white, and you can add a touch of color, every now and then as well. So here's a little more color added, to that particular example. But my point is, when you're out there doing a piece of art, there's a thought behind, a purpose behind. I'm not painting because it's Red Rock Crossing. I'm painting because that last light of the day I wanted to showcase, even though it was at 2 different times. I'm painting today, the demonstration I did for us, because I wanted to showcase just some of the, the simple shapes. And so this particular painting isn't because I'm showcasing what it's like at Dillman's Lodge up in Lac du Flambeau, Wisconsin. I wanted to just enamor you with that immediate feeling of, oh, the golden color, that golden light. Wow, is it very rich and alive? So having a thought for and a purpose behind each of the paintings, and you'll have greater success and more rewards. So sketch more, practice more, not as much always doing a finished painting. So I hope that inspires everybody to do a little play once in a while.
Absolutely. I love that. I love that idea. The pencil, I take gray markers out to do value studies when I'm doing plein air, but I like that idea of having the wash that I can do over that pencil. I think it's a great idea.
And then it dissolves, so it's an extra bonus for watercolors because I'm practicing brown brush, watercolor painting. A lot of times I do my my little practice preliminaries on watercolor canvas. And so then they can be sprayed and sealed and doesn't even have to go in a frame. I throw a biography, on the back. And so there was, a lot like a preliminary.
What is a watercolor canvas?
Yeah, Frederick's Canvas has made a treatment to watercolor canvas that allows here's back to that gum arabic and oxgall and so forth that's in it. So Frederick's the biggest canvas maker in North America. They do a treatment to the canvas that the watercolor paint, the gum arabic and the oxgall will stick to. Then when you're all finished, you can put a spray varnish on it, and so it's sealed. So the oil canvas has an oil prime. The watercolor canvas has a water-based gesso, a water-based acrylic ground as a priming to it. And so now I can paint and then not have to have a glass behind these. So a spray varnish sealer, and then I just showcase these on a little table easel like that. And so it becomes so what was my practice time becomes now a little gem of art that doesn't even have to go into a frame. So it is.
Okay, I have a couple of questions for you.
Fire away.
All right. First off, what kind of varnish do you use on that? Because if it's water-based, it's going to make it run.
All varnishes are acrylic-based. And so archival, so Golden, Prismacolor, Blair, those are all acrylic varnishes. And for me, I think I know what you may be thinking. I've got this watercolor paint that's pigment that's laying on the top of that paper surface. Isn't the spray going to just melt it all together? So my first one, it was a test on a piece of side paper, but no, it's sprayed and sealed. And so now, who would ever do this to a finished watercolor painting? So I'm spraying away, and it's archival. So a couple of coats of spray varnish, made sure I didn't spray something on a painting on the floor, and it's now protected from the environment.
Now, do you spray varnish or other watercolors that are going under glass?
I don't spray watercolor watercolor on paper, I would spray a watercolor that's on watercolor canvas.
Okay. Now I have another question. If you would do your close up and turn the canvas so we can see the back of it, because I want to highlight something. I mean, you're the consummate pro. Turn it over so we can see your bio on the back. See, yep. I think this is so critical. I like the idea of putting a biography on the back of your canvas. I like the idea of telling a story of the particular painting, if you possibly can, dating it and everything else. So absolutely. Okay, there's the stamp from the Lighthouse Plein Air Center.
And then a lot of times in here, I'll write a little note about the scene or what I was trying to showcase. So I like your idea. You're exactly right. Tell a little story about it. So there's a story about me, and then room here for a little bit of story about the painting.
Yeah.
Instead of
also can't hurt to reiterate your copyright. I I don't like it when the canvas companies put all their, they fill up the back of their canvases with all their logo. I want to have I want a space where I can write things on there. I wish they would stop doing that.
Yeah, you've got to put a sticker on there. And that's what this is. So that's just really, it's not elaborate. I just print out my biography on sticky paper, then I just peel it off and lay it across the back. But yeah, that idea of this is a story. There's a story behind it. Either a story where I was, or the story of where I was thinking, or a story about who the person that painted it, and giving that little bit of extra, which I do, on my studio paintings. So anytime a painting goes out to a collector, it has a manila envelope in the back, and there's copies of, I'll have the link for this particular video that they can watch, any brochures and so forth. So building a little pedigree about the art and the artist has been a part of what I've always done. So there's another bio on the back of a different one. So
okay, last but not least, Tom, what was that little holder that you held that you put the painting in? That little.
Yeah, I found one of these online and was able to market it with my name on it, and so it goes with every painting, and so it opens up. Now you can buy fancier, ways in which to prop up a painting, but that's the idea behind this. As you can see, I forget where it was, I found that. And so now that the painting can just be propped up that way and showcased that particular way.
Very nice. Okay, so Tom, you were going to do another piece. You've got about 15 minutes left.
I would go big brush. Let's do that same scene, but now have a sketch and do it with a 2.5-inch brush. How's that sound?
That sounds great.
I can do that. I like to have a couple of things that I could show, so we went through a bunch of them. I have here I've done a quick sketch of the scene with that thick and thin and that crosshatch, shading. So let's just touch once more, because I had an exaggerated, version of that for you to see as a way in which to go out and do a sketch ahead of time. And so that's that. The sketch already looks inviting or looks finished and looks successful. And now, can this be painted using a 2-inch brush? Now, this is not the 100% sable that I recommend. Let me clear out a spot on my palette and give you another look. And so here's where we're going with this as well. Here's a couple of examples of paintings that were created with this other lesson or purpose. This is done with a 2-inch brush, and it's done in about 10 minutes. So I forced myself to go quick. I forced myself to just get large. Whatever you can do with that brush, you go right ahead. And so here's where I'm going to demonstrate one for you as well, but I wanted to share with you the ultimate big shape simplicity that they have. And so here's a couple of examples of what it's like. And now I can demonstrate for you. Let me just clear out some of the paint in my palette.
Okay, while you're doing that, I'll just make a couple quick announcements.
Thank you.
All right. So, hey, we're at day 313. I'm Eric Rhoads, publisher of Fine Art Connoisseur and Plein Air Magazine. Our guest today is Tom Lynch. Today at 3 p.m., we have the great Ken Oster, the great late Ken Oster. His video Street Scenes, where I stood beside him filming this and also being there while people were walking up to him and marveling. But you'll get a chance to see that and get a discount on this today at 3 p.m. on Facebook or YouTube. Just go and search Streamline Art Video. We're here every day, 7 days a week at 3 p.m. Doing this because of COVID. So check it out. Tomorrow, our guest tomorrow is Stefan Baumann. You've seen him on PBS. He's going to be our guest tomorrow. So make sure you check that out. And I'd like for you guys to follow me. I've got to get my followings up on Instagram. I added several hundred this week during Watercolor Live, and I've got 1,000 more before I hit the 10,000 mark. And after 10,000, it goes to 100,000 easily. So if you would follow me, Eric Rhoads, at Instagram, that'd be really great. We have a 97 tips video for you, 97 amazing painting secrets. If you're watching for the first time, check it out. It's free. You can get stream or DVD. DVD, I think you have to pay the shipping. All right. Plein Air Convention is coming up in May. People asked, is it still going on? Yep. We plan on it. We don't know if it's going to happen or not, but there's 100% money back guarantee in the event that you cannot sign. We can't hold it. We'll give you your money back, but sign up before Valentine's Day, which is just around the corner, to get the special pricing on that. Okay, Tom, I'm back, and let's get you going here.
Great. Thanks. Good information. Thanks for sharing, and hoping to be a part of all those events and activities as well. So a different lesson, and again, the previous one the mission was simplicity. The mission for this one is the gain simplicity, but the big shapes. Can you look at a scene, almost the squinting look that just capture those big simple shapes, not the refinement, not the detail. And one way to force you into that is to using a really large brush. So my size is 11 by 15, for the image area, and I've got a 2-inch brush. Yes, you can use the edge and the side and the corner, but capture the big shapes, then stop, get out of the way, maybe a little bit of the secret sauce. It's a great way to see the landscape. So these are all lessons to improve me. So my intuition makes a better judgment at the way in which I'm going to paint. Instead of I'm just doing it, I just decided, just made that choice. Well, how does that work? Well, I've done these lessons to train my intuition, so I make those better choices. So we can take that same scene now and capture it. It could be in one color. I'll deal with, multiple color shifts. So it's a little bit of a touch 4. And again, I have the photograph nearby. Does it seem like that particular building, that 80% idea that you liked before? Yes, I'm going to use that again. I'm not going to fill all the way in between every part, but just block in, clean out the brush, dry out the brush, refresh the color. It also, I think, teaches you a lot about using different parts of the brush. I always marvel sometimes at some of my students, they're trying to create a painting and they're holding a portfolio of brushes, and they might use this one and then they might grab that one. I go, forget all of this. Get one brush, just practice using different parts of the one brush instead of having multiple brushes in your hand. So it trains you to use the corner of the brush once in a while, or the edge of the brush, or the side of the brush. And so here it's all about just the bold, big, simple shapes, not the refinement that one could create. And notice sometimes I'm attacking the painting from the top, sometimes from the side, from the below. So not everything done, in that Palmer method that my years of Catholic school taught me how to hold the pen. So the edge, the side, the heel, the corner, the belly, come from the top, come from the side, come from the bottom. And turn this into a visual just of the big, simple shapes of the scene. And this will improve you as an artist, not only how you see, but as well how you paint. You might start doing some of these same approaches in the studio, on a painting, or plein air as well.
Tom, what are those round containers at the top of your canvas? Is that your paint?
I actually do. Yeah, in studio paintings, I do a lot of painting with paint in a spray bottle. So if there were to be a leaf, a bush, a shrub, I actually a good number of times, and it fits into the simplicity of sorts. And so I will use it. I had a custom design made where they lightly can be tapped, and then I'll turn that
Great idea.
to a bush or a tree. And so watch how I can tap out some color, tap some clear water on top of it, and then now all of a sudden I have the suggestion of a bush or a tree. So I do it for grass. I do it for roads. Excuse me for the name roads, but for items like that. And
I love that.
yeah. So there's probably a dozen different things that I can paint by using paint in a spray bottle, all because I want the simplicity. I want the essence of the item. I don't want the refinement. And it's a different mark than what the brush can do.
Man, it's really interesting. I've been doing this for 313 days, and every artist teaches me something new that I've never known. And you would think that at some point there'd never be something new, yet every single one has something they do differently.
Well, you've pointed out something, and I think you've underestimated yourself. You pointed it out in a way you're open to learning something new. And I think that's just as important as the fact that you gained something new, but you were open and interested and looking for, new ways in which to paint. And I think that's an important part I've been painting for 50 years professionally, a couple of years of school even before that, and I'm still open to trying something new. This isn't the usual way. I've learned to paint by not doing the sky first, only because I was open to that particular idea, even though all the books that I had in my library at the time said do the sky first.
Yeah. Well, you could take that same principle and put some linseed oil and some
Yes.
and some oil paint and use that same principle if you wanted to create kind of a wild abstract tree shape.
Certainly.
I'm going to try it.
Good call. Good. You'll enjoy it. Finding something new is also that little bit of spark that puts that excitement into the brush holder. They're excited about trying something new. They've got a different process, get the same feeling as if you had a new brush. You can't wait to see how that new brush might fit into, your creative process.
Absolutely.
So here we come in big, simple shapes. Perfect tool for this section of the boat. That big sweeping curve.
Don't answer that.
Okay, I didn't even know you heard it. Seems like
I thought when you brought out the big brush, I thought you were going to do these big, giant swatches of color, and
right.
You're really getting some delicacy with that. It's amazing.
Well, that's that part of forcing yourself to get this brush to do that delicate part. Yes, there's a way to do a finished painting where you put a big wash down, but no, I'm talking about, let's say, had you put a big wash, what would you do next? And then instead of coming out with that number 4 round brush, after you put a big colorful wash across the whole surface, how about coming back and tagging it with this large brush in these simple little, elegant manners that I'm using? People
want to know about your 2-inch brush.
It's actually a synthetic. I just didn't want to spend $400 because I have when I do full-size paintings, I have an 1.5-inch brush. That's a $400 Kolinsky Sable brush. This is a $40 2-inch. It says gray matters, so it's a Jack Richardson.
Yeah.
So it doesn't have to be an expensive one to do that very loose. And again, remind yourself frequently, what am I doing? Don't get into the thought that this is a boat by any means of the conversation. This is all about just showcasing the big, simple shapes of the scene. Then you can say to yourself, okay, I'm on track, I'm on path, or I'm not. So don't look for anything more than, is this finished effort have those big, simple shapes? Does it seem like a rooftop? Does it seem like a building in the distance? Does it seem like a shadow coming across?
Now I see on your website that these are dot spray bottles, and they spray dots, not mist.
Yes, because all the store-bought bottles will spray out a fine mist. And so the magic of these is that you can tap them lightly and you get different sizes like that. Whereas the store-bought, they're going to be all and only those tiny ones. And so that's what I can take and turn into. Joshua, grab me the painting. It's on the end there, the left one. I'll show you where I use it for the ground as well. So far left, big one. So that's the idea. I had this custom made where it could be lightly tapped and spray out. So all of this grass and all of this ground, this was all spray bottle patterns, for that area. A little bit of the, of the tree in that particular section, sometimes an accent of color on top. I don't want to brush, and so I want to capture that little watermark look. And so here the spray bottle spit out some dots, and I had a more interesting pattern to capture the texture in that forested area. But just the grass and the ground, instead of doing a brush again, the spray bottle did all the work for me in that particular case. So fun little tool. It's a nice change of pace. A big sweeping curve here for the front of the boat. And I'm not painting a boat. Front of that shape is what I should have said. Come back in with a little bit of the secret sauce. About a little extra contrast in here as well. Whatever a 2-inch brush can do, you go right ahead. So I'm not saying a small brush is an enemy, but I think one tends to take the small brush too soon into the creative process.
Hey guys, I'll post the link. People are asking about the bottles. I'll post the link to the spray bottles. That is a link from Tom's site.
Thank you, sir. TomLynch.com. I got those dot spray bottles. There's actually a YouTube video. You can watch the show, a lot of the different ways in which I make use of them. So the simple elegance of big shapes.
Somebody asked how many paints a tube you go through in a year.
Oh, that's a good question. I don't have the answer to that. And there's another question. Have they ever asked you, how many paintings have you done in a lifetime? I don't have an answer to those two questions. I don't know why. Maybe I don't want to know. Or
more than one.
Okay.
Less than 1 million.
That's a good call. Okay. I probably don't think of the number of tubes of paint. Not that I'm avoiding the question. I don't want to think about the equation of how much I've spent.
And you're using Sennelier paint, is what you said.
Yeah, there's a benefit to that in that dry color that dries out in your palette, because it doesn't have a component that other brands might have, oxgall. When the color got wet, if it had oxgall in it, the color would dry like normal, but the oxgall would kick in and harden the color. So there's a different version for you of our lesson, where I was kind of focusing on just the big, simple shapes of the scene and not the small little parts. Let's do the same thing. Watch the change to this when I take away the white of the sky.
We're going to have to wrap up here, Tom. So why don't you come back on camera? But yes, when you see the sky come in, it's going to.
And that just brings the eye back to. Sorry about that. Just smoothing it out. Now your eye goes back to the white that's within the painting. So.
All right.
A minute or two. Thanks for allowing me.
That was fabulous. Tom, would you secretly, we announced yesterday or Saturday that we're doing Watercolor Live 2022, and we've got almost 800 people signed up for it already. Would you be so kind as to be one of our faculty members?
I got the hat. I want to use it again for some reason. So count me in. 2022. I'd be happy to be there. I appreciate the invitation, Eric.
Well, that's our online conference. And so we'll follow up with you on that. And we'll have to get you back to the plein air convention as well.
Sure.
And Tom, you're a great teacher. And I can tell from just looking at your website and so on, you're also a great entrepreneur. You must sell a lot of paintings. And we'll have to interview you about that sometime when I do a marketing session.
We could touch on it during the podcast.
Okay, we'll do that. Great idea.
All right.
Okay, that's great. Well, thank you, Tom Lynch. Everybody, thumbs up and applause for Tom Lynch. And we had a lot of people watching today. If you're new to us, we're here every day at 12 noon Eastern, 5 days a week, and 7 days a week at 3 p.m. Eastern with art instruction video samples that we have done. We just came off of Watercolor Live 4 days. Yes, we're all exhausted. Everybody watching is exhausted. This is a little hair of the dog, right, to get you back into it. And couldn't be better than to have Tom Lynch. What a great, great instructor. We announced this weekend that we're doing Watercolor Live 2022. We don't have the website up for anybody yet. Only the people who go to the conference were able to sign up for it, and they got a special link and a special price. We'll get that out to you in a few days. We also announced the new Plein Air Live, which is also same situation. We'll get that website up for you soon. They have access to it right now, but that will be made available to you soon. Want to thank you guys for being here every day. It is so much fun for me. We had a lot of fun on Watercolor Live. Being silly, if you would go to my Instagram, I posted on stories some behind the scenes dancing stuff that we were doing, and it was kind of a lot of fun. And so if you want to see that, go to my stories on Instagram. And while you're there, follow me, and that would be Eric Rhoads, Rhoads. And I got to get up to 10,000 followers. I'm lagging behind here. You know, I should have more than 10,000. I got the rest of you guys watching. You could fill in the blank right now today. All right. Thank you so much for being here. And we will see you tomorrow. Our guest tomorrow is Stefan Baumann, the TV guy from PBS on TV. And take care. Have a great day. Remember, stay positive, stay upbeat. It's still crazy out there. We're still here to keep you feeling good about yourself and to get you distracted a little bit, keep you focusing on your art. A lot of you are stuck at home, and now a lot of you are stuck at home because of the snowstorm. So stay warm, stay safe, be here tomorrow, and we're thinking about you. Bye-bye.